In a wooded parkland in the northwest corner of Canton, Ohio, off Interstate 77, stands a memorial to America's most exciting sport, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This nationally acclaimed museum is situated not far from the site where the National Football League was founded in 1920 and where the Canton Bulldogs were crowned the NFL champions in 1922 and 1923. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is filled with dynamic and entertaining exhibitions that recapture every phase of pro football's almost 100-year-old history, and at the same time pay homage to the great players, coaches, and contributors who have been accorded membership into the Hall. Each year, a new class is inducted, giving them a permanent place in the game's history. Such was the case on July 27, 1991, when 5 new members were officially presented. If you were there, it will be an emotional reminder of the occasion. If you were not, the experience here may prompt you to visit the museum and its annual induction ceremony at some future date. Bringing the total membership in the hall to 160 are guard and defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears, Stan Jones. Running back for the Houston Oilers, Earl Campbell. Guard for the New England Patriots, John Hanna. Administrator for the Dallas Cowboys, Tex Schramm. Kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, Jan Stenerud.
To greet this year's class of enshrinees as they are introduced, I would like to introduce to you the Commissioner of the National Football League, Mr. Paul Tagliabue. And also the Chairman of the Board of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Board of Trustees, Mr. Stu Wilkins. And now, let's meet this year's class of enshrinees. In 1953, this enshrinee was a 5th-round draft choice of the Chicago Bears. His first year, he played offensive tackle and then played guard for the next several seasons. It was as an offensive guard that he was all NFL 4 times and played in 7 Pro Bowls. He even switched over and played defensive tackle his last 4 seasons in the NFL. He was as tough as they come, missing only 2 games in his first 11 seasons. He served as the Chicago Bears offensive captain for many years. A Hall of Fame welcome for Stan Jones. He was the Heisman Trophy winner in 1977 and the first player taken in the 1978 draft. In his first year, he was the NFL's most valuable player, All-Pro, and the Rookie of the Year. He was picked for the Pro Bowl 5 of his first 6 seasons. And being a ball carrier, he took a pounding from the defense, but missed only 6 games in his 8-season career. He could run around you, he could run over you. Elected in his first year of eligibility, a big welcome for Earl Campbell. This man was a powerhouse guard from Alabama and was the first-round pick of the New England Patriots in 1973 and the 4th player selected in the draft that year. He was a 2-time All-American in college. He was named All-Pro 10 straight years from 1976 through 1985. He was selected to play in 9 Pro Bowls, won the NFL Players Association Offensive Lineman of the Year 4 straight times, recognized as one of the premier guards ever to play the game of pro football, elected in his first year of eligibility. A Hall of Fame welcome for John Hanna. Our next enshrinee played a dynamic role in professional football during a 44-year span that began in 1947 when he was the publicity director of the Los Angeles Rams and concluded in 1990 when he was president and chief executive officer of the new World League of American Football. His major impact came as the leader of the Dallas Cowboys for 29 years from 1960 to early 1989. His Cowboy teams played in 5 Super Bowls, had 20 straight winning seasons. For 23 years, he served as chairman of the NFL Competition Committee and along with Lamar Hunt was a primary force in the merger of the AFL and the NFL. Welcome to Canton, Ohio, Mr. Tex Schramm. How do you go from being an outstanding ski jumper to one of pro football's greatest place kickers? This man did it. The Kansas City Chiefs drafted him in the 3rd round of the AFL's 1966 Future Draft. He went on to excel for 19 pro seasons, never missed a game. He ranks 2nd in all-time scoring with 1,699 points, and his 373 career field goals are an all-time high. He was named All-Pro 4 times, All-AFL, AFC 4 times. He was named the MVP 1972 Super Bowl. Here he is, a welcome for Jan Stenerud. Ladies and gentlemen, now to honor this great country of ours, would you please join with Marge Gentler in the singing of our national anthem.
All right. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And to give all of you a big Canton, Ohio welcome, here's the mayor of this great city, Mr. Sam Persis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to be able to welcome you to the moment for which this entire festival has been created. 5 gridiron greats find their way to football immortality, and we are here to share it with them. Thank you.
they love these short speeches, don't they? Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Commissioner of the National Football League. Again, Mr. Tagliabue, Mr. Paul Tagliabue.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for coming today to honor 5 of the great contributors to the National Football League. The members of the Hall of Fame set the standard of excellence that all of us in the NFL strive to achieve. Today, with our players and our executives and our coaches, we are constantly striving to be like the Hall of Famers, to be the best, to be as close to perfect as any human being can be. Over the years, the standard of excellence for players was set by the Otto Grahams, the Bob Waterfields, the Sid Luckmans, the Steve Van Burens, and the Marion Motleys. For owners and executives, it was set by the Tim Maras, the George Hallases, the Art Rooneys, the George Preston Marshalls, all members of the Hall of Fame. Today, the standard is not only set, it is carried on by the Earl Campbells, by Stan Jones, by John Hanna, by Jan Stenerud, and Tex Schramm. We salute them, we honor them, and we congratulate them for their achievements and for their standard of excellence. Thank you very, very much. I know it's going to be a great, great day.
We announced that some of our past enshrinees would be a bit late as they were caught in the parade traffic, but we have 4 more greats on the stage that we would like to introduce to you before we start the presentation of our 5 brand new enshrinees. This man, an exceptional breakaway runner. He was named All-NFL 5 times during his 7 seasons with the Chicago Bears. From the class of 1977, welcome Gale Sayers. This man played 9 years with the Eagles, was named All-NFL on both offense and defense. From the class of 1970, a welcome for Pete Pihos. As a rookie, he started in a backfield that included 3 Hall of Famers, Tittle, Perry, and McElhenney. From the class of 1987, a former 49er, Lions, Steelers, and Oilers star fullback, John Henry Johnson. In the 1940s and 1950s, when the Cleveland Browns were a dominant power, this wide receiver was a favorite target of quarterback Otto Graham. From the class of 1975, welcome Dante Lavelli. Ladies and gentlemen, this entire week is built around one event: the enshrinement of more greats from the world of pro football. So let us begin. Bob Kilcullen and Stan Jones had a lot in common. Each played on both the offensive and defensive lines with the Chicago Bears, and they were teammates for 8 seasons. Today, Bob Kilcullen is here to present his longtime teammate and friend, Stan Jones, for induction. A welcome for Mr. Bob Kilcullen.
Stan Jones was the first to bring vitamins, nutrition, and weightlifting to training camp in Rensselaer, Indiana. And I'll never forget tiger's milk on his dresser in the dorm. And I often wondered what poor devils had to go out and get that stuff. I am truly privileged to present to you today one of the most deserving inductees into the Hall of Fame. right here in Canton, where the league began with the help of our old coach, George Hallis. Only in America can this happen. America has embraced the NFL and made it part of the American landscape, but this is about people, and I'm here to tell you about one who is special. Paul and Justine Jones began their family in Altoona, Pennsylvania, with the birth of their son, Stan. They soon moved to Lemoyne, where Stan began his football career. Sadly, Paul's health began to fail. However, during his brief life, he was able to give Stan valuable encouragement, especially after losses. This encouragement took root and would often surface. Stan's grandfather and great-grandfather also gave this guy a cherished gift, that of storytelling. And this is a vanishing art. Stan played football at the University of Maryland, where he was chosen unanimous All-American and the Lineman of the Year by the Washington Touchdown Club. He was drafted by the Bears in '53 and became part of the Chicago Bear tradition. He earned All-Pro 7 times and was selected. He was All-Pro 4 times and was selected 7 times to the Pro Bowl as an offensive right guard. Now that should be enough to enter the Hall of Fame itself. But let me tell you something exceptional. Nearing the end of his career in '62, Stan was asked to help out on defense, so he began to play both ways. 1963 found the Bears depleted by injuries, and so Stan found himself starting at left defensive tackle. As the Bears limped into Green Bay to open the season against Lombardi's twice NFL champions, the Bears won it. When we played again later in the year, the Bears and the Packers were tied for first place in beautiful Wrigley Field. Stan and the Bears triumphed again. And as one Packer in that second game put it, he said, "That was just an old-fashioned country licking." That defensive team in '63 led in 10, they were first in 10 categories and second in 8 out of a total of 19, and held a record for years for points scored against at 10. In the early '60s, as captain of the team, Stan had to take the unpopular news that the Bears players had voted unanimously to join the NFLPA. This was, and the Bears were the last team to join. This was the beginning of the NFL Players Association. We old Bears are tremendously proud of Stan. In fact, there's a lot of us who wish we could go back and do it all again because he made it so much fun. But the love and pride are felt mostly right here today in Canton. Stan's high school sweetheart and wife Darlis is here, along with his daughter Sherry and their sons Kevin and Tony and their families. Stan's abilities and honors on the field are only matched by his warm approach to life itself. I feel this is why we all love this guy. God bless you, Stan Jones.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob. Bob failed to mention that the left end on that football team in 1963 was Bob Kilcullen. And Bob had done the same thing I had done. He had moved from offense to defense. And we were kind of suspect, to say the least. And I think we withstood the challenge. But the thing is that just to think at that point in time that we would end up at this place together, I think it only right that he be here and to share it with us. I want to thank, too, the New England Patriot Organization for allowing me to miss my first training camp for 3 days in 38 years. I think I'm entitled to a pass after 38 years, but they were very great about it, and Sam Jankowicz is here, and Victor Kayam. I really appreciate it. I also want to say that I appreciate the hospitality of the Canton area and some of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my entire life. I also would like to thank the former enshrinees that were here and give us support in a fraternal type of way that is seldom seen, and at a height and at a place that few can really understand. The honors that I received today I share, and there are many honors. And I'm honored, first of all, for the fact that I'm coming in with a class that I have a great deal of respect for as individuals. I've known them in a distant way, but nevertheless. And when I first think of names like Tex Schramm, I think of that great Dallas organization, something that everyone in the league had a tremendous amount of respect for. Jan Stenerud, I'll never forget those booming kickoffs in the old stadium in Kansas City, where Toma would paint an X at the back of the stadium. I never saw anybody kick a ball completely out of a football field before. Earl Campbell, lethal thighs. I've watched some of our best defensive backs come up to attempt to make a tackle, and an all-pro safety trying to make a tackle, and were carried out of the game. John Hanna, we had to take volunteers to line up against him. He was so effective. I also have a great honor and great thrill for me as an offensive guard, and I know John feels the same way, to be here. There was a point in time where the guards, Abe Gibbon and a few of us had gotten together and had decided to possibly move our Hall of Fame to Buffalo, New York. There we would hold a bowling tournament during the February month. It was sort of an off season there, and we wouldn't use pins. As true guards, we would not use pins, but we wouldn't use balls. We would just run down the lane and go head first into the pins. And then we have Rodney Dangerfield be the master of ceremonies. But fortunately, the Loyal Brotherhood of Offensive Guards is back into the fold here, and we now have 3 pure guards into the Hall of Fame, and that's a tremendous pleasure for me. I also am thrilled, thank you, also thrilled that 10 former teammates, I'm joining 10 former teammates of mine that are already enshrined, and also 8 former head coach or assistant coaches and head coaches who are in the Hall of Fame. Now, how can you go wrong when you had 8 Hall of Famers coach you? So that certainly is something special. But no one stands here alone, and no one understands this better than an old offensive guard. There are many, many, many people who deserve to be recognized by me for their great help. Whether it was a nudge, a push, or a boot, chief among those here is my wife, Darlis. And she certainly has given her share of nudges, pushes, and boots. And my family, Cheryl, Kevin, Clea, and Tony and Alma, and our 4 grandchildren, and one is here today. Tori Jones is sitting in the front of the stadium here. And I really appreciate their support, because I think they were somewhat shortchanged at times because of the hours and things that we get involved with as players and coaches. And I want to also say something about the great friends that I've had throughout the years at the various places I've been. And a lot of them are here. There have been over 100. I should receive an award from the Chamber of Commerce from Canton for filling up more motel space than anybody else here. And no one came further, and no one is more loved than Fern Clark and her son John from Hawaii. Fern's husband was a teammate of mine and also my roommate with the Chicago Bears, and unfortunately passed on 2 years ago. And I just wish that he were here. And no one is more missed. I also would like to say something that my relatives, I don't have that many. Unfortunately, I was an only child, and my parents died early. But my cousins, Kay Jones, Diffenbaugh, Penny Jones, Eisenberg, and Jack Ansman are here. And then my friends and former teammates from Lemoyne High School in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania, and John Bateman, my former coach, is sitting here in attendance. And it's a tremendous thrill. And I know John had some worries, I know, along the way that possibly I might not reach this area of whatever. And also my friends from Maryland, teammates from Maryland, and former teammates from Chicago, and Stan Carr, who was attending today, who came up, were very ill and was able to make it. I appreciate that. And friends from Denver Broncos, and I've never forgotten them. I see many of them out there. And friends from Buffalo and Cleveland. Unfortunately, the people that probably should be here and get a high respect from me would be my father, who unfortunately died before I graduated from college and never seen me become an All-American. And his greatest hero was Red Grange. And Red Grange was the highest pinnacle that man could ever expect anything. And he often said to me that, you know, the main thing about sports, and he never played football. He was never healthy enough to play. But the thing about it was that you challenged your opponent. I remember he came down to the University of Maryland. He only saw me play one game. And he saw the game, and I said, Dad, after the game, I didn't play very well. He said, no, you didn't. But you challenged the guy you played against. You made him a better football player. And I'll never forget that. My mother, who was responsible for my longevity in sports, I was going to retire after my 4th or 5th year with the Bears, and she says, no, Stan, why don't you stick around long enough to make a name for yourself? It's taken me 38 years, but maybe I'm coming close. I'd also like to thank my former coaches, my high school coach, Henry Gazelle, Jim Tatum, George Hallis, who was more than a football coach. He was the owner and a very loved person, and somebody that I felt very close to as you would have someone in the family. Clark Shaughnessy, who scouted me and recommended me and was my coach in offense when I first went with the Bears. And my pro line coaches, I'd like to mention them. Bulldog Turner was my first offensive line coach, and George Connor was a coach and a loved teammate, and he was one of my heroes. I think George Connor was the greatest thing that I ever had the opportunity to get on the team and play with. Joe Steidehar was also a coach of mine in the defense, and Phil Handler, Mo Scary. It's been my pleasure to play the game of football, especially playing in a league that has continued to be the greatest sports game in the world. The NFL has and continues to attract the greatest athletes to compete within the framework of a complex team game. The greatest thrill I have known has been to line up with and against some of these greatest athletes and human beings I've ever known. I had the greatest admiration for my opponents like Leo Nomalini, Artie Donovan, Boris Gregg, Jim Ringo, just to name a few who are already enshrined. The mention of the good old days turns off many of us, especially the younger people. But the early years of my career were good because of the low salaries. We were forced to find housing together in Chicago in transient hotels. And the players not only knew each other, the families knew each other. The wives, the kids, everybody knew each other. This was made for a tight-knit team, all for one and one for all. I certainly wasn't the guy that was going to let them down on a goal line stand, because I had to come back into that hotel and look at those kids and the families and not to rob them out of a few extra $1,000 at the end of the season that meant so much. And our kids, I can recall our days off where we take the kids to the zoo. The Lincoln Park Zoo became a regular stopping place for us in those days. And we celebrated our victories and mourned our defeats and fought and argued in private, but publicly defended our teammates. Locker room signs said in those days, what's said here stays here. Even today, as I speak, that we're very close to the families of many of my ex-teammates. And on top of this pyramid of organization was Papa George Hallis. He might cuss you out, but he would be there to defend you and your family. always there to bail you out of problems. And everyone in the Bear organization, a lifetime Chicago Bear. Togetherness, yes, but better far, there was love. Those were the good old days, and some people say they weren't so hot. But I'll tell you, they were great. And for what it's worth, department, my suggestion for the future of the NFL, bring back the sledgehammer offense. Put back the drive blocks, the traps, and inline trench warfare. Bring back the 7-man sled. Drive the sled and quit popping recoiling all over the place. Outlaw the mass substitution. Makes you about half sick. Second and long, everybody comes off the bench, everybody goes back on the bench. All the trick football. 13 men in a huddle. In general, let linemen compete. Bring back the days of grass surfaces and outdoor stadiums. Thank you very much. It's the greatest honor that I've ever received, and I'm going to treasure this for the remainder of my life. Thank you very much.
O.A. Bum Phillips was Earl Campbell's first pro head coach with the Houston Oilers, and he also was Earl's coach when he played with the New Orleans Saints near the end of his career. Thus, it is very appropriate today that Bum Phillips is here to present Earl Campbell for enshrinement. Welcome, Bum Phillips.
Thank you. If y'all were looking into this sun, you'd know why I'm wearing a hat. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame for giving me the opportunity to come back up to this part of North Texas. Oh, it's not? I know there's a whole lot of people deserve congratulations, the Hall of Fame, the enshrinees, but I want to send a special congratulations to the people of Canton, Ohio, and the state of Ohio for that parade this morning. That was outstanding. That's the best thing I've ever seen. I've had some tough jobs in my life, but believe me, this is one of the toughest. Introduce a guy that made almost 10,000 yards, a guy that's been in every newspaper and on every TV camera for the last 30 days, a guy that's the best running back that I've ever seen in my life, and they tell me to do it in less than 4 minutes. Some of his runs lasted that long. Earl and I've been friends a long time. He came down. One thing I appreciate about him was his loyalty. He came down, and he's a great hunter, great outdoorsman, great sportsman. They wanted to go quail hunting, so I told him, okay, I'll take you over to Orange and let you go to my grandpa's place. We get over there and drive up to the ranch house, and there's a whole bunch of dogs in the yard. And, of course, they knew me and didn't know Earl, so I said, you're going to have to sit in the car. So I went inside and talked to my grandpa, and he told me where everything was. And I got out and got back just as I was getting ready to go out of the house. He said, Bum, he said, would you do me a favor? I said, yes, sir. He said, you're on your way in, he said, you saw that old white barn down there? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, that old gray mule standing out there is 29 years old. And he said, I've raised that thing since she's a baby. And he said, the vet told me that I had to put her down, and she's really in misery, and I don't have the heart to do it. Would you stop by there and put her out of her misery? I said, yes, sir. So I get back in the car, and we're going down the road, and Earl said, what did he say? And I thought, well, I'll just kind of mess with him a little bit. I said, the old so-and-so said we couldn't hunt. Boy, he swelled up. I mean, he got mad, and we're going along there. We get about even with that mule. I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go shoot his mule. So I stop and I get out and I go over there and, of course, put the mule out of her misery and come back. No Earl Campbell. About that time I hear boom, boom, and I look, and here comes Earl running across the hill, Said, Bum, let's get out of here. I got his horse and his dog. And if that ain't loyalty, I don't know anything about loyalty. I like to take credit for Earl Campbell and for all he's meant to football, but truth about it, the credit belongs to the other people that raised him. His junior high coaches, his college coaches, his mama Ann, his sister, and his whole family. They're the ones that did the job. Believe me, when I got Earl Campbell, he was not only a football player already, he knew how to live on the field and off the field, and it's a credit to his family and the people that have brought him up. When you draft a guy, first pick in the whole country, you better know something about him besides his height, weight, and speed. And the way it worked out with Earl, we didn't know we were going to get to trade for him, his rights. So I didn't really take a whole lot of time studying Earl Campbell. I knew he was the #1 pick. I knew he was the best back in the country. But I didn't really study him very much. In any event, about a week before the draft, we got a chance to trade for him. Is my light went on yet? Anyhow, we got a chance to trade for him and got the trade made. But just before we made it, I said, well, I better find out about how good a kid he is, too. So I called a guy that's sitting right here in the audience, who I think a lot of, a great amount of, Darrell Royal. And I said, Coach, what kind of kid is Earl Campbell? And his exact words, I'll never forget them. He said, Bum, he ain't got a hole in him nowhere. He said, what you see is what you get. And believe me, Darrell K. Royal, you were right. He ain't got no holes in him nowhere. I can't help but think back of some of the memories. I know y'all have seen all of the reruns and everything, but you know, when you get my age, you sit around, you do a whole lot more thinking you do anything else. I shut my eyes sometime at night. I remember the time we're playing the Rams, and Earl starts off to the left, cuts upfield, hits an all-pro linebacker, Isaiah Robinson, right in the chest, runs over him, takes that football and holds it out here like a loaf of bread, continues to run down the field just tromping and mashing and knocking people everywhere. And I think about tonight that we're playing Miami on Monday Night TV, and I think one of the greatest football games. And here's a guy on the 28th carry of the ball game when all we needed was a first down to run the clock out. He runs 81 yards, outruns all the secondary of Miami for a touchdown that put the game on ice. I think about Washington game, his rookie year, he made the best 9-yard run I've ever seen made in football. 7 people, and I don't mean tagged him or grabbed him, I mean hit him, and never stopped, just kept twisting and spinning. Of course, it's something I've seen so many times in film. I wish y'all could have seen all of the runs that this kid has made. I mean, some of them are just unbelievable, how he could almost go down, put his hand on the ground, spin out, get up, stiff arm, and run over 2 or 3 people, and then outrun everybody else. I think probably the most outstanding thing of Earl Campbell, and the thing that separates him from a lot of other people, was dedication to the game. I can remember, you know, he's a great running back. Everybody knows that. But he's also a great team player. I can remember Earl staying out late after practice his rookie year because he took a lot of pride in the fact that he was not going to let Pastorini get hit. If Pastorini got hit, it's going to be because somebody else missed the block. And obviously Earl in college didn't do a whole lot of pass protection, so he took it up and took it on his own shoulders to get out there and work hard at it, because it meant something to him to take care of his teammates because they're the ones that take care of him. I can think back about watching him. He signs autographs. If he's got 10 minutes or an hour, whatever it is, every time you see Earl Campbell sign an autograph, you'll see him sign it, and he'll look up and he'll look you in the eye, and he'll ask you your name, and he'll take time with you and make sure that you understand that he's as proud you ask him as he is to sign it. Believe me, those are the things that I think about Earl Campbell. Y'all can watch him in the movies. I can watch him in my memory. I've got a lot of memories. Been around a long time. I think about it a lot. When I stop and think about it, Earl Campbell, you are my greatest memory of all. I'd like to introduce to you all my personal friend, a guy that you're going to get to hear talk, and he ain't going to talk near as long as I did. Tyler Rose from Tyler, Texas, Earl Christian Campbell.
Thank you all very much. Bum, I didn't shoot that mule. I didn't have anything to do with that. I will say this to the volunteers, and as well as like everybody else is going to say in the Hall of Fame, I think you've done a great job. And I do in Texas when I run, I get up about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I got a Rottweiler and a Labrador Retriever. But I can't do that every morning back to back. It's like you can't just go do everything every night. And I'm kind of happy that the days come, because the older I get, that late hours bother me. And these Hall of Fame people, I mean, I haven't had time. Yesterday, I said, gee, I hadn't showered. That's how serious it's been since I've been here, but it's a pleasure. I don't know how I could stand here and not go back to the first time I remember I started playing organized football for Mamie G. Griffin Elementary School there in Tyler, Texas. And I got bused about 20 miles to school. And a guy named Thorndike Lewis invited me to play flag football. That was my first time. And there was a guy I wanted to learn so bad from, who was a local drinker in our hometown. His name was Bobby Mims. Probably one of the best high school football players, they say, in Tyler, Texas. So what I would do on Sundays after church, I'd go down to this sandlot field, and I'd want to. And this guy was grown. I was a kid, but I wanted to compete against him because everybody said he was so good. That guy right there did a lot for me. And there's a guy named Lawrence LaQuarrie, bless his heart, he's dead and gone now. I went through a period in my life to where I wanted to play football and I wanted to have my rough buddies. And I wanted to be rough too, but he says, gotta be one thing, either you and not your buddies, or you just go with your buddies. So I had to give up my buddies. That guy helped straighten my life out. I don't know, everybody got great people in their lives, and we all do, but I think since the time that I was in the 5th grade all the way up until now, the one thing I've always had is I always played on teams with great guys. And I'd love to stand here and name all of them's name one by one, but that wouldn't be enough time. Every team I've ever played on, I've always tried to share with the guys that I played with. And I think if any of them ever had anything to say about Earl Campbell, they'd say he's a giver, he's not a taker. And there goes my mother, Mrs. Ann Campbell. I was listening to her coming back from the hall the other day, was going to the hotel. She had 7 boys and 4 girls. I'm number 6 in the family. I said, you know, everything is great. It's amazing how God blesses you. She says, yes. So I remember one Sunday morning, I was getting y'all dressed for church. I told your daddy, I said, I won't ever get to go anywhere. I won't ever get a chance to see anything. He says, darling, you ought to be careful. You never know what God got in store for you. She said, who'd have thought I'd be here in Canton, Ohio? I didn't even think I was going to be here, Mama. But I'm happy you're here. Other morning I was jogging and I got to thinking what I really wanted to write down and what I really wanted to say, and I might as well be honest. I said, Earl, stop fooling yourself. You was a speech major in college, but you never really wrote a speech. Just get up there and talk it off the tip. But the more and more I tried to write a speech, the one thing I'll always remember about this day, beyond football, is that my daddy, B.C. Campbell, is up there in heaven, I believe, with all his buddies. And he's telling him what a great son he had. Look at my son, I know he can handle it. And I thank you all so much. Everything. And every day is not a great day in my life. I mean, I'm like everybody else. I work hard, and that's all I ever do. I got a lady been with me, I think, 24 years, if I'm right. You stay with them so long, you kind of forget it. But if it was me, some days I'd just say, Earl, I'm through with you, son. But she reminds me of a song that Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard wrote called "Oh Tougher Than Leather." That's my wife, Renee. I got two little old boys, and one of them was born. I wanted to give him a double dose of make sure he never forgot where he came from. Well, I have my first son, stand-up son. His name is Earl Christian Campbell. This other kid here belongs to my wife. His name is Tyler Christian Campbell. Would you stand up? I just want to let all you people in America know that it's no place like this. I've never been nowhere else, but I've heard talk about it. And I'm so proud to be an American. I'm so proud to be in the Hall of Fame with the Jim Browns, the Franco Harris, and someday soon, I'm sure, the Walter Paytons and Dorsett. But when they say Campbell, I want y'all to remember this. The old boy gave it his all. Who will buy my memories, as Willie Nelson say. Thank you.
Herb Hanna played pro football with the New York Giants in 1951, and he later had two sons who also played in the NFL. One of those sons, John, is being enshrined today, and Herb Hanna has the unique distinction of presenting his son, John Hanna, for enshrinement. Welcome, please, Herb Hanna.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen, there has never been a father more honored than I am today. When John asked me to present him to you, and it was just the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I couldn't talk to him when he first asked me, and I just froze up and turned it over to the wife. But the good Lord has blessed Coop and me with 4 fine sons, 4 beautiful daughters-in-law, and 7 very special grandchildren. I'm so thankful that most of us are here today to be with them, John, as he receives this most coveted honor. Our special thanks to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for inviting us to share in this very special occasion with you. Your hospitality has just been tremendous. It is rare that a person is recognized as being the very best at what he does. The magnitude of this award can only be put in its proper perspective when you realize that only 155 men out of the 1,000 that have been played the game of football have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Early on, I knew John had the qualities that greatness is made of. When he left Albertville, Alabama for the New England Patriots 18 years ago, I told him that he could be just as good as he wanted to be. For 13 years, I thought he was the very best there was at his position. When John was born, God gave him all the attributes of a great offensive guard. He had the intelligence, the physical talents, a winning attitude, a burning desire for excellence, a competitive nature, and an unusual tolerance for pain. I, like the many fans who enjoyed watching John play, will always remember his exploding into a linebacker, a defensive lineman, leading a back off tackle or round in, or dropping back on pass protection, always giving it 110% on each and every play. The intensity of his play was always by the rules of the game and without any fanfare. He just went about doing his job Sunday after Sunday as good as or better than any offensive lineman that I ever saw play the game. I'm sure that John will wear this most coveted honor with respect and humility and will conduct himself in such a manner as to bring dignity and honor to the game of football. With a tremendous amount of pride and happiness, it is my distinct pleasure to present to you one of the newest candidates for induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, my son, John Hannah.
He didn't tell you about the times he ran me around the house with that switch to improve my swing. God, I love football. And to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is probably the one fulfillment of a lifelong dream that you just don't know what it means to me. I remember when I was growing up in Albertville, Alabama, Mom and Dad would take us to church, and as soon as church was over, we'd fly home to try to see guys like Ray Nitschke and Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus and all those guys play, and man, I'd sit there and froth at the mouth and just say, I wonder if I'll ever be good enough to play with those guys. I wonder if I'll ever be able to play with them. And I remember even playing in the NFL, you know, I had a coach, Jim Ringo, that had played in the game, and I went to him one time. I said, Coach, do you think I could have played with those teams in the 60s? You think I was good enough? Well, what today means to me is that I've made a cut. You know, I'm on the team, and right now I've got the honor of playing alongside with the greatest heroes that ever played football. I also want to believe that this award means that in some small way I might have given something back to the game that's given me so much. First of all, it's given me the talents to establish a place in this world for John Hannah. And second of all, it's allowed me to provide for a family by doing something that I truly love to do. Yet the greatest gifts that this game gave me were not the honors and the awards, but the people and the lessons those people taught me. All these people were major influences in my life, and they all made me what you see before you today. I want to talk about people like Major Luke Worsham, who was my high school coach. He's the guy that really taught me and showed me what love was all about, because he would shoulder my problems. He'd always stand by me to offer me encouragement when things got tough. And when things were going awry, he'd make sure that he'd correct me to get me right back on path. I also want to thank a gentleman that couldn't be here today, and that's Coach Paul Bryant. Coach Bryant left with me a lesson of setting lofty goals. And not only that, but to run life's race to reach those goals. The greatest lesson he left with me was that you have to beat your body. You got to make it your slave if you ever want to get to where you want to go. I want to thank people like Coach Chuck Fairbanks, who taught me the importance of organization and surrounding yourself with talent, because you can rely on the special gifts of others. He taught me that plans are frustrated without consultation, but with wise counsel, they're established. I want to thank people like Red Miller, who was my first offensive line coach in the NFL. He taught me that there's no better pleasure in life than to enjoy what you're doing, because then you give it the best that you've got, and then when you look back, you're happy with what you've done. I want to thank Jim Ringo, who is probably my favorite and best offensive line coach, because what he taught me was that you can't cling to and rely on the basics, but that you have to push on to reach the full capabilities of the talents you've been given. I want to thank people like Raymond Berry, who was my last coach with the New England Patriots. And what he taught me was the value of faith and that dreams can come true if you believe a thing is so, even though it's not, so that it will be so. I want to thank teammates like Leon Gray, Bill Nkaitis, Booger Bob McKay, Andy Johnson, Sam Cunningham, Steve Grogan, Steve Nelson, and Pete Brock, and all the rest of the guys who were there to cover up when I missed my blocks. I want to thank for guys that picked me up after football was over, like Joe Fallon, Steve Alpert, John Lund, and all those guys, Howard Harrop. Because all these guys taught me that there are people out there who are friends that are as close as brothers, and I thank you for it. My family's always meant the world to me. My brothers Ron, Charlie, David, they've always have been and always will be my best friends. And the reason why is because we never had to prove our love for each other. Matter of fact, when we were kids, we'd fight like dogs. We'd take each other for granted. But you let somebody pick on one of the Hannah boys, and you just better get ready to fight us all. I love them. And you know, it's always great to know that when there's a time of trouble or a time of joy, there's always somebody to share it with. Because there's nobody prouder of the other guy's successes. And I'm proud of Charlie and David and Ron and all that they've done and they've accomplished in life. I want to thank my mom and dad because they were always there. One time my mom and dad drove to Bristol, Tennessee on Friday night to see my brother David play high school ball. They drove to back the next day to Birmingham, Alabama to see my brother Charlie play football in college. Then they drove up to Cincinnati, Ohio on Sunday to watch me play. They always gave it everything they had and a little more. And they never failed to show us their love. Even when they had to punish us, although at the time it didn't feel real good, didn't feel a whole lot like love, I can look back now and see the fruits that punishment yielded. And I might even think that they might could have used that belt a few more times. I want to thank my dad for one of the greatest lessons that any man has ever learned, and I hope I never forget it. And that's to never be satisfied with what you have done, but always reach out. Forget what lies behind and press on to what lies ahead. To sum up and to kind of tell you some other things I can't leave out is my wife, Paige, my kids, Seth and Mary Beth. And, too many times in my career they've been left in the background, and they're the ones that really deserve the praise. And they taught me what it means to regard each other as more important than yourself. And, it's nice now to be known as Seth and Mary Beth's daddy rather than them being John Hannah's son or daughter. And Paige, you're the Hall of Famer. You stuck by me through thick and thin, and when nobody else would, I guarantee you. And I love you, honey. Appreciate it. And one other person that I can't leave out that I met when I was playing football, and that's my God and my Savior. And I want to make sure that I don't forget any of His benefits, because He pardons all my wrongs, He heals all my diseases, He crowns my life with loving kindness and compassion, He satisfies my desires with good things, and my strength is always renewed. Yes, I thank God for football and for giving me the talent to play the greatest game that was ever created. I want to thank God for all the people who He has brought into my life and the lessons they've taught. I want to thank God for a family which really understands the meaning of a family and tries to live their life accordingly. Thank you, fans, for making this possible. Thank you, Hall of Fame, for the pro football. Thank you for everything. And I appreciate this great honor, and God bless you all. Thanks.
In 1985, Pete Rozelle asked Tex Schramm, the man who gave him his first job in pro football, to serve as his presenter. Today, those roles have been reversed. And Pete Rozelle, the man who led the National Football League so well for so long, is here to present another great contributor, Tex Schramm. Welcome, Pete Rozelle.
I first met Tex Schramm in 1952. I interviewed with him for the Los Angeles Ram public relations job, and so Tex explained what was wanted for the job and so forth, and had a good discussion. Finally, got the salary. He said that the salary would be $5,500 a year, and I said, well, I thought perhaps $6,000 would be more appropriate, and so we compromised on $5,500. So that set the stages for my obvious appreciation for Tex's negotiating skills. They came into play again some 14 years later in 1966 on the merger of the AFL and the NFL, when largely because of my appreciation for his negotiating with me, he became the point man for the NFL in negotiating with Lamar Hunt on the merger, which I'll discuss a little bit later. But Tex started his 44-year career with the National Football League in 1947. As a public relations man for the Los Angeles Rams. And at that time, the Rams had just been in Los Angeles, having moved from Cleveland. I think it's their second year. They moved in '46. And they had a very colorful football team that Tex, I'm sure, enjoyed publicizing. They had 5 Hall of Famers, quarterbacks Van Brockman and Waterfield, the ends Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch and Tom Fears. Another Hall of Famer here was Andy Rovastelli, we saw earlier this week. So he honed his skills with the media during that period, and also learned a great deal about scouting, the importance of the draft and building a team. So he was with the Rams for about 10 years, until 1957, and served as assistant to the president and GM later on. And finally he moved to CBS Sports in 1957. He was assistant director of sports and had an opportunity to learn for 3 years about this burgeoning new television medium. But his big break came in 1960 with the expansion team in Dallas, Texas. And Tex became the president and chief executive officer of the club for Clint Murkison. And his first step was to hire a relatively obscure defensive coach, assistant coach, with the New York Giants named Tom Landry. And as you know, he too came here to this building. But Texan and Tom were a tremendous team for 29 years in Dallas. Tom taking care of the team on the field and Tex taking care of everything else. And they had a tremendous record. They were known as America's team. Tex didn't name them that, but he kind of clung to the tag anyway. And they had 20 straight winning seasons. 18 of those were in the playoffs. And they participated in 5 Super Bowl games, winning 2 of them. The amazing thing is the 3 they lost, I'm sure each one of them bothers Tex to this day, by a total of 11 points, those 3 games they lost in the Super Bowl. He did other things in Dallas. He elevated the level of club operations, I think, for the whole league. He developed computer scouting to help him on the draft. He had a very colorful Cowboy Newsweek, a newsletter every week. He developed a tremendous state-of-the-art stadium in Dallas. And he also built a tremendous cowboy complex of offices. And of course, not forgetting maybe the most important thing, my wife will take exception to this, but the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders weren't too bad either. But Tex had more time than just the Cowboys, and he offered tremendous amounts of time to the National Football League. Every activity we're involved in, Tex would participate and attempt to help. And for these contributions, of course, he certainly deserved a great deal of credit, and he's getting it today. In his work as the chairman of the league's competition committee, he was involved with the playing rules on the field and all aspects of the playing of the game. And that committee, as an example, puts several crowd pleasers through. The referee's mic, so that he didn't have to give hand signals, and so you would hear the referee's mic and the instant replay. So I think that during this 44 years career, particularly the 29 with the Cowboys, he achieved so many things. But the key, of course, was in 1966. And he was the designated man on the merger talks, secret talks, with Lamar Hunt of the AFL. And I went to Dallas, and I stayed about, I think, a week. And looking down here, I can see Tex's daughter, Candy, who was then I'd gotten into her teenage years. And Tex would go off to have these secret talks with Lamar during the day, and I would stay at the home and make these furtive calls to NFL owners around the country and getting their ideas and their approval of several things. Then Tex would come home at night, and he and I would talk furtively deep into the night. And so Candy tagged me then as Sneaky Pete, and she still calls me that. She was trying to understand the history of what was going on. In any event, I can only say that 160 men have been inducted in this Hall of Fame. None with more pride, more appreciation, or more happiness than Texas E. Schramm. I give him to you today.
Thank you, Pete. Pete is one of three men that played the biggest role in me being at this rostrum here today, but I'll touch on that later. Right now, you're probably looking at the happiest man in this world. As you heard my resume, I wasn't one of the great athletes and the great players like these men are behind me. And to be, it's really humbling, and I'm humble, and my associates and friends will say that's not a major part of my personality. But I'm really humble and in awe to be standing here in front of this building that means so much, and in front of these men that are members of this hall, many of them my heroes. And to be here rubbing shoulders with them, it's really beyond comprehension. When you've been in the National Football League for 40 years, 44 including CBS, you owe an awful lot to an awful lot of people. And I'm not going to be able to touch on all of them, obviously, but it takes a lot of help when that happens, when you get somewhere like this in the role that I was in. First, I'd like to touch on my family. Unfortunately, my mother nor my father, Tex and Elsa, were able to see a great deal of my career. My father didn't even see any of the Cowboy days. My mother called my father Tech, and so they called me Techie. And that Techie might have been all right in the household, but that didn't play very well in the neighborhood. But now I can say that I hope they're looking down and know that their Techie did okay. The other part, another major, obviously, that anybody that's up here has to have a very, very unusual wife and a very, very unusual family, because they have to put up with an awful lot of somebody that is in a competitive, emotional, visible business like professional football is. And my wife has had to do the tough part. She's had to raise three great daughters and put up with me 49 years now, be 50 next April, and doesn't happen much anymore. And you know, she had to put up with that life of me never coming home and eating when other people do, or only thinking about that damn football, or living in an atmosphere with our daughters and friends of stay away from daddy when they lose. But my wife Marty, I wouldn't be here without her. I understand that they are going to introduce our families later on, and you want to look at a bunch of good-looking Texas girls, you're going to see them when my family gets up there. Now, the Dallas Cowboys. What years? What memories? So many contributed, and so many that I wished I could start naming them. But if I did, Jan Stenerud would never get up here to the rostrum. So, but the great players, and I think two of them that really epitomize what I would like people to think of as Cowboy football players, were Roger Staubach and Bob Lilly. They're here in the hall. They're here in the hall. Our coach is Tom Landry. A very, very unique person, because he not only was a great football coach, but he stood for so much more. And when he was on that sideline, I think it just gave everybody a kind of a sense that there was some solidity and some reason in this world. Tom was the only coach we had. That was all we needed, the only head coach. But he was backed up by a bunch of great assistants, as anybody that's successful. One of them was with us just about the whole trip. Our defensive coordinator, a member of this hall, here this weekend, Ernie Stotner from Pittsburgh. Great person, great name. And another, Jim Myers. You folks don't know him, but he was with us for 25 years, 26 years, and he was our offensive line coach and worked in that area. One I'm very pleased of was one of our younger coaches. In fact, we had two younger coaches I'm very proud of. The other one is here this weekend, and that's Dan Reeves, who was a player and a coach with us. And the other one is that fella that kind of always stays in the background, and you really don't ever hear very much about him because he likes to be low key, Mike Ditka. Now, along with that part, you know, every organization has to have an organization. There's got to be people that furnish the glue and furnish the oil to make your organization stay together and function. And these are the members of the staff that are, you know, mostly unpublicized, unknown, yet they're the ones that get the people in the stadium, get the team on the field, and furnish and provide the atmosphere for your combatants to compete successfully. They also play a very big role in something that I think is very important that we try to do with the Cowboys, and that is in their dealing with everybody to create an image. To create an image that has some style and has a little bit of class, because I think that is essential. If you're going to have a winning team, you want everybody to be proud of it and to be able to look up to it, and along with just winning, and that was what these people did for us. I want to point out just two or three. Some of the names won't mean anything to you, but they mean a tremendous amount to me, because that's why I'm up here, and that's why who I worked with all the years. I especially want to point out Gil Brandt, who you've heard his name. He was one of the first people that I hired, even in the fall of '59, before we had a franchise, and he was responsible for most of the players that we had, the great players. He was our chief scout. And then others that contributed for most of the years, some of them all of the years, Joe Bailey, Kay Lang, Doug Todd, Don Wilson, Bob Friedman. I want to mention them because they mean a great deal to me. Now at this point, I want to tell you that specifically the three men that are the most responsible for me being here. The first one, he's gone. His name is Dan Reeves, not the coach. He was the far-sighted owner that moved the Cleveland Rams to Los Angeles in 1946, before anybody else was thinking about going to the West Coast. And he hired me in '47, and he was a very innovative, forward-thinking, bright man, and he gave me the first base to build on with the Los Angeles Rams, and I'll always be indebted to him. The second one probably is just about more important, or as important as any of them, and that was Clint Murkison Jr., who was the founder of the Cowboys. He had the courage to go with an expansion team, and he had the courage to go with me as his general manager. He gave us tremendous support. I think he would be proud today that I'm here, because I wouldn't be if it weren't for the rare confidence and the unqualified support that he gave to all of us in the Cowboy organization. Now the third man, and I want to give you just a little. When I was the Rams in 1947, I was 26 years old, and there were 10 teams in the league. It wasn't really a national league then. In 1947, they were all ooched into the northeast part of the country. There were 2 New Yorks, 2 Chicagos, Green Bay, Detroit, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington, and Los Angeles stuck out on the West Coast. And I learned very, very quick that before any club can be successful or any individual can be successful, the league has to be successful, because the teams and the individuals get their recognition and their strength from the strength of the league. So early on, I made up my mind that I wanted to try to play a role in the development of our game, development of our league. If necessary, a club has to sacrifice for the good of the league. And I'll tell you how they thought back a few years ago, which I'm not sure applies now. But if you got a picture today of a team in New York City, like the Yankees will say, just to make it, agreeing to share all of their television revenue with all the members in the league, that's what the Maras did in 1961 for the good of the league. That was a breed, special breed of people. And in working with the league, the reason I said that this man had so much to do with me being here, because if it had not been for Pete Rozelle, I don't think I would have been able to make any of the contributions or played any of the roles that I played. And it was because of his support and the confidence that he had in my judgment. So between Dan Reeves, Clint Murkison, and Pete Rozelle, they're the reason that I'm standing here today. And Pete, thank you very much. And finally, this is really something important to me, because in my role, there's nothing like the fans. The fans they're just a great bunch of people, and I talk to them every week on the radio, and the fans, they develop an attachment that is very close to love, like you have in the family. And boy, they love you when things are going good, and when you disappoint them, then they want to lash back. But that's because you always want to, so often you hurt the one that you love the most. And so the fans, they will always be a tremendous part of my life. I love you all. Now, I do want to touch on one other group, and sometimes these people aren't the most popular, but the members of the media, the press, television, and radio. They have a tough job. They work for somebody else, and and we want them, candidly, to be promoters of our sport. And I've found that there are a great number of them that I was able to develop a wonderful professional relationship with, and they do a great job for our league and for all of us. To recognize the depth of this honor, for me, I've been in the league 40 years, starting in 47. The people that are here in this hall are people that I saw and met, and I never dreamed that somebody on the administrative side and the front office side like myself would ever be here. They were my heroes. They were people that I idolized. And now it's really staggering to think that here I am joining them. There could be no greater honor. And I'd also like to hope that maybe the fact that I'm standing here now will help some of those people that are out there doing those jobs that you never hear about in the organization will think, gee, now maybe I have a chance. But I'd like to give them one little piece of advice. You have to remember that the game is the thing that has to progress. The game is the thing that has to grow. And if you dedicate yourself to making sure that the game grows instead of your own career or your own team, you'll find out some amazing things will happen for you. I thank you. I'm humble. And I'm telling you, I'm the happiest man in this organization. Thank you.
Besides being his first pro football coach, Hank Schramm played a special role in Jan Stenerud's career by working long hours before his first training camp to improve Jan's kicking skills. Today, Hank is here for the fourth time to present a former Kansas City Chiefs star for induction. Welcome, Hank Schramm.
Yeah, thank you very much. When I think of Jan, I think of impact. And impact, defined, is an instantaneous stroke communicated through a body in motion. I had to read that about 3 times before I understood it. Jan Stenerud is that body in motion, and I will elaborate on his impact on the Kansas City Chiefs, the American Football League, and the National Football League, the record books, and the Hall of Fame. The first time I saw Jan, he was kicking 40-yard field goals like they were extra points in a preseason pre-warm-up game against Tulsa and Montana State in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1966. Tommy O'Boyle, our director of player personnel, and I went to the game and watched him kick the opening kickoff through the uprights and 8 rows into the bleachers. Needless to say, he made a dramatic impact. I always felt that we would win or lose about 4 to 6 games a year with a kicking game. And after watching him that day, we were convinced that he would add the dimension we were seeking. And he was just not a kicker. He was an athlete who excelled in track and field, soccer. He was an All-American ski jumper on a ski scholarship. He could have been on the Olympic ski team had he not pursued football. Now, he hates to admit it, but he's a 3 handicap golfer. 3. There was no questions that he would help us win, and help us win he did. He made his very first field goal in his first attempt, a 54-yarder against Houston in 1967. He went on to help us become one of the winningest teams in the National Football League with 2 divisional championships, 3 playoffs, and a Super Bowl win over the Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl number 4. His 3 field goals of 48, 32, and 25 yards against the Vikings gave us a 9-0 lead, and his 48-yard kick had a stunning effect on Minnesota. He holds a record for the longest field goal in Super Bowl history of 48 yards, which has been matched but not eclipsed. In his first 4 seasons with Kansas City, he made 72% of his field goals when the league average was 50%. He is Kansas City's record holder in career points. Jan also made a great impact on the American Football League and National Football League as he helped usher in the age of soccer-style kickers. Because of his strong leg and long kicks, he reduced the size of the playing field. He influenced the Rules Committee to change the field goal and kickoff rules in 1974, his 7th year in the league. He had an impact on the record books. Jan holds a record for career field goals, 373. He scored 100 or more points in 7 different seasons. He is the only player to gain All-Pro honors in 3 decades, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Jan was the most accurate kicker in all of pro football from 80 to 84. He made 82% of his field goals. In 1981, when he was with the Green Bay Packers, he made 22 of 24 field goals, a league record of 91%, 2 points, and he had an impact also on the Hall of Fame because he is the very first specialist to enter pro football's Hall of Fame. Various publications have their all-time teams and best ever teams. They have one thing in common, however. Jan is named on all of them. Everyone in the Hall of Fame was a great player, but only a few were the very best ever at their position. Jan is the total Hall of Fame package, productive, consistent, and enduring. He was a great competitor, and no one was better than Jan when the game was on the line. He made 5 field goals, twice against Buffalo, the year we won the Super Bowl. And with all of his accomplishments, recognition, statistics, and records, the best thing about Jan is Jan the person. He never changed. He was humble and appreciative. And when he signed his contract and received his bonus, he said, you know, this is more money than my dad made in his lifetime. I will always be grateful for the opportunity to play professional football. He was sincere, had great pride and dedication. He was very demanding of himself and had a super attitude. He was a total team player. He didn't have a prima donna bone in his body. He was respected, admired, and loved by his teammates and coaches. He always handled himself with class and style, grace and dignity. He was a consistent role model for his family, his university, pro football, and the great fans of this country. Jan, thanks very much for the honor of permitting me to present you here today and have you join our other great players in Lamar Hunt in the National Football League Hall of Fame, Bobby Bell, Lenny Dawson, Buck Buchanan, Willie Lanier. We're all very, very proud of you, Jan. Good luck and God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Coach. Those were very kind words, and I appreciate them very much. When I grew up in Norway, my dream was to become an outstanding ski jumper. But I never dreamed that my greatest jump of all would be to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Nearly 30 years ago, I was recruited from Norway to Montana State on a skiing scholarship. One autumn afternoon, my junior year, 1964, I did something that would dramatically change my life forever. I attempted to kick a football a couple of times. To keep in shape for the ski season, I was always run the stadium steps at Montana State to get ready for a long, hard ski season, and the football team was always practicing. And this one day, I decided to go down and kick a few footballs. I always played a lot of soccer, and I guess I had one urge to try this oval ball. Went down there and tried a few with the toes like everybody else kicked in those days. And all of a sudden I realized that if I approached this ball at an angle and hit it with the side of my foot, it would be more comfortable for me. I did. The basketball coach of all people walked across the field, and he ran over to the football coach, Jim Sweeney, and informed him that a ski jumper was kicking the hell out of the football out there. Now, Coach Sweeney did not want to listen to, in Jim's own words, a goofy basketball. And a couple of weeks later, however, I was out there again, and he summoned me down from the stands, and he asked me if I could kick off, and they showed me how to put the ball on the tee. I kicked off 5 times, and 3 of them went through the goalpost. That was from the 40-yard line in those days, 70 yards to the goalpost. I wasn't really sure if I had done okay or not. I was not that familiar with the game. But I guess I did okay because Coach Sweeney tried to convince me to go out for spring football the next year, which I did. In the meantime, some of my teammates at Montana State had informed me that I'd seen a guy on television from the Buffalo Bills, Pete Gogolak, who had been kicking in the same style that I had displayed, and they also convinced me to go out for the team. As I became more and more familiar with this great game, I learned to appreciate the skills necessary to play the various positions. Most positions require skill, strength, speed, intelligence, and mental toughness. No one has more respect for the people seated behind me and are members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is undeniable that a kicker's position oftentimes is isolated, and that the skills that are necessary to become an outstanding kicker are different from those skills required to play most other positions. It's a job with intense pressure. I always felt if I had 2 bad games in a row, I would be unemployed. There are 2 people here today that were great kickers as well as outstanding football players, George Blanda and Lou Groza. George and Lou, your talents were remarkable. You were exceptional, and I salute you. I am, of course, aware of the fact that I'm the first person ever elected to this great shrine based on kicking alone. It gives me, of course, a sense of pride and accomplishment, but most of all, I feel very, very lucky. A lot of things happened to me that I had no control over. When I was developing my skills as a soccer player and a ski jumper, which is a perfect combination for a field goal kicker, I didn't even know what a field goal was. Ski jumping, it's a sport that requires concentration, and of course kicking field goals requires concentration as well. In the mid-60s, the field goal became increasingly important to the game of football, about the same time that I happened to step on the field at Montana State. I was drafted by Kansas City at the right time. They had great players when we got there. Super Bowl IV, and we had great coaching with Hank Schramm, of course, who won the Coach of the Year title 4 times. He won the AFL championship 3 times. We had the greatest players that anybody ever seen on the football field. 5 of them are here today. We got Bobby Bell, a great linebacker, Len Dawson, Buck Buchanan, Willie Lanier, and of course our owner, Lamar Hunt, who is also in the Hall of Fame. At Montana State, I had a coach. I mentioned him earlier, but I need to recognize him more. His name was Jim Sweeney. He's the winningest coach, or one of the winningest coaches in all of college football. He got me started in this great American game, and coach, without your enthusiasm, your intensity and desire to win, obviously I wouldn't be here today. You made a real impact on me. I love you, and I appreciate that for the rest of my life. There are also a couple of other people I'd like to acknowledge that were teammates at Montana State. Gary Richards and Terry Albright came all the way out from the great state of Montana to share this day with me. I appreciate it, guys, very much. I talked about some of the luck involved. Late in my career, 1980, when everybody else in the league thought I was washed up, Bart Starr, the great player and then the coach for the Green Bay Packers, took a chance on me, and that paved the way for 6 more years in the league. And Bart, I assume you're listening somewhere. I appreciate it very much. There are certain occasions in everybody's life that make you think about the people that influenced you the most and helped you. Today my thoughts are with my parents. My dad, who passed away 2 years ago, always had ambitious dreams and goals, while my mother always had been a realist. They were, in my view, a perfect combination. My dad, who was never afraid of thinking big, and my mother, who made me realize that goals could not be reached without an all-out effort. If there are qualities that I inherited from both of them, it would be stability and determination. I mentioned Hank earlier. We know his coaching record. One thing you don't know about Hank, and that I made the biggest impact on me, when I came to Kansas City in 1967, he went out on the practice field several weeks before training camp started and knelt down and held the football for me 50 times the last few weeks leading up to camp, and that told me a lot about Hank Schramm. When I mentioned my teammates earlier, I didn't say much about Lenny Dawson, the great guy from Alliance, Ohio, who you all know. He wasn't only one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He was my holder, of course, my first 19 years in the American Football League, and he was very instrumental in my success. I also want to tell the football fans and the football organization with the 3 teams that I played, Kansas City, Green Bay, and Minnesota, a heartfelt thank you for your loyalty and support. And now I would like for you to meet the most important people in my life, Shane, Clancy, Brett, Betsy, and of course my wife, Lindy. "19 seasons in the greatest team sport ever invented produced a lot of memories. The excitement of a Chiefs-Raiders contest, the thrill of a Monday night football game, autumn Sunday afternoon at Lambeau Field, and of course the satisfaction of a job well done. Let me close by going back to where it started, ski jumping. When you get off that ramp and you fly through the air, for a moment you feel as if you have conquered the world, as you are soaring high above the ground. Today, with these memories and this honor, I got that same feeling, the feeling that my feet are now touching the ground. Thank you, American football, for giving me this truly unbelievable moment. Thank you.
Going to ask the audience to remain where you are for about another minute, and then we will introduce the families of these enshrinees. At the present time, they're taking the photo of Jan, and then they will get a group photo here to my left on the steps of the Hall of Fame. If you're a first-time visitor to these ceremonies, we hope you have enjoyed them. And we want to see you back here next year or some year. Been a great day. Another great class.
Hold them out there, guys.
Where did Earl go to, you know? We're missing him up here. He went in the back? They said he went inside. We have to get Earl back out here. Hey, Georgia.
I haven't spotted her yet.
No, no, I gotta wait.
Well, they found Earl. Here he comes. And once all the photographers get their group photo, the enshrinees will be escorted upstairs, and then we will introduce their families. So here in front, be careful. The families will be coming through you here. You want these guys out of here, right? Hey, Bart. Stan Jones, Earl Campbell, John Hanna, Tex Schramm, Jan Stenerud. To my left, 1991 class of enshrinees. And they are going to depart and be taken upstairs. And now I would like to introduce the families. So again, down front, be careful, they're coming through here. These are the immediate families of the enshrinees and the presenters. For enshrinee, Stan Jones. Let's bring up here his wife, Darlis, daughter, Cheryl, son, Kevin, and his family, and son, Tony. If we can get them through here. And for Earl Campbell, wife, Renee, sons, Earl Christian, Tyler Christian, and mother, Ann. They are coming through here. For enshrinee, John Hanna, wife, Paige, daughter, Mary Beth, son, Seth, and mother, Geneva. For enshrinee, Tex Schramm, wife, Marty, daughters, Marty, Christy, and Candy with their families. For enshrinee, Jan Stenerud, wife, Lindy, daughters, Betsy and Clancy, and sons, Brett and Shane. Now for the presenters. For presenter Bob Kilcullen, his wife Katie. For presenter Bum Phillips, his wife Debbie. For presenter Pete Roselle, his wife Carrie. And for presenter Hank Stram, his wife Phyllis. Now to honor this great country of ours as we close out this program for this year, I ask again that you join Marge Genther in the singing of God Bless America.
God bless America. Come on. Land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Drive safely.